You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hey everyone, I hate to start a new week off on a downer note, but veteran comic artist Lee Moder has passed away. Now, he was 53 years old, which is way too young, especially me being 52, going to turn 53 in April. A family friend is the one that's reporting this, says Moder died quietly in his home sometime on or before January 15th. Now, the exact cause of death is yet to be known. And if you're not familiar with Moder's work, he's credited as the co-creator of the Courtney Whitmore version of Stargirl with Jeff Johns, Shinku with Ron Mars, and also Dreamer with Tom Payer and Tom McCaw. Moder worked in the comic industry for close to 30 years, drawing titles like Legion of Superheroes, Wonder Woman, and then over at Top Cow, he did a book called Dragon Prince. We here at The Experience would like to offer condolences to his family, his friends, and his fans. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Tuesday, February, what are we thinking, the 7th? Hey Triple B, how you doing? Today, well, last night was the red carpet world premiere of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And this is a big thing because it's starting the phase 5 of, Marvel. It's the second phase of the multiverse saga. And, as we see it, Marvel just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And, and the reviews on it, now the reviews are usually very positive right after. Hey, John. It's almost like they line up the good reviews, and they're really positive. People are referring to the story as weird but good. They're saying that it's Marvel's Star Wars, things like that. So, and I've been looking online for spoilers because I do that. I want to get ahead of it on some things, but I haven't seen much. So it's that I find interesting, that people are keeping kind of mum on it, which is pretty good. But then again, most of the people who saw it last night were invited and wouldn't want to screw things up. So, but normally you get at least some spoilers. Now we do know there are 2 post-credit scenes. Hey, cool. So you definitely want to stick around for those, and I hear that they're pretty important. So yeah. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania coming out. Now that'll be in theaters on the 17th. So we still got a few days, 10 days, I think, total. So I figured now would be a good time to kind of look back and kind of take stock of exactly what phase 4 was, because phase 4 was kind of all over the place in a lot of ways. Hey, Lyle, what were the themes? What were they trying to do? Now, Kevin Feige has come out and said that phase 4 was in a lot of ways an introductory phase in the same way that phase 1 was. Phase 1 introduced us to the majority of the characters. The original 6 or original 7? The original 7. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man, Black Widow, Nick Fury. Didn't think I'd get to 7, did you? Um, so that's what we got was the original teams there, and we just kind of built out from there. Now we're getting that here in Phase 4 as well, but the other thing we're dealing with is the fallout from the Infinity Saga, and I think that is as important, if not more important, than the introduction stuff. Because we've met a lot of characters, and it's kind of funny now. We went through Phase 1, and we had the Iron Man movies, we had the Hulk movie, we had Thor, Captain America, and then we had the Avengers. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to see these characters again. We got a third Iron Man movie coming. We got another Captain America movie coming, another Thor movie coming. Yeah. Oh, and we're going to do the Guardians, and we're going to do we're going to spread it out a little. Little Ant-Man's going to come. We're going to be okay. Here, we've got so many new characters introduced, and other characters revisited that you have to stop and think, well, when are we going to see these guys again? You know what I mean? I mean, let's take Miss Marvel. Yeah, okay, we're going to get her in the Marvels, but okay, when are we going to get Moon Knight? Where's Moon Knight going to pop up again? Where's Kate Bishop and Hawkeye going to pop up again? Okay, when are we getting another Shang-Chi? Or, I mean, just they gave us so much in Phase 4 of new characters that we haven't really been able to get a good idea of where things are. And then we know the movie's coming up in Phase 5, and we know a little bit of Phase, but still, it just seems like we're kind of all over the place. So as it gets bigger, it has to get even bigger, if that makes any sense. When you create a character nowadays, we create them with the idea that we're going to see them again and do more with them. The villains, villains can be one and done. Though not in comics, there are more ongoing villains. Or maybe there are, I don't know. I've never really took a poll to see if there are more ongoing villains or one and done villains, but there are a lot of ongoing villains. So when you introduce a villain like Ultron, you kind of expect that Ultron's going to return. He's going to pop up in other things because that's what he does in comics, But you're talking years and years and years. You're talking something that comes out every month. So Marvel puts out, 25 books a month. So sure, you're going to bring Ultron back around. Maybe he pops up here in Avengers, and he's going to show up going up against Iron Man over there, or that type of thing. And you don't get that as much in movies because until they started doing the TV series, it was okay. We're going to have one movie 3 movies this year and 3 movies next year. So to bring the same villain back over and over again doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you can have your overarching guy like Thanos or Kang, but overall you kind of have to move on to the next guy or keep things fresh. So, but there's a lot of characters they're introducing, and it's getting to be that the universe is crowded and everybody's vying for attention. So let's take a look at the shows. We're going to talk about the shows, all the different movies and the TV shows and the specials, and we'll look at them in order that they came out. I could do it chronologically, but then you got to move things around, and so we'll just focus on, and when you get a movie like The Eternals, do you talk about like part of it first and then part of it later? Because it jumps around in time. All right. we're just going to go with how they came out. Now, the first thing of Phase 4 was WandaVision, the first television show, the first Disney Plus series. I mean, not the first official MCU television show. JD Artist says, fortunately, it's a phase that we can skip most of. See, I don't agree. I do not agree. And I think there's some really good stuff in this phase. There's a couple clunkers that are not great, but I think in retrospect, some of these are better than we get. It's kind of funny. We live in a society that likes to build things up and then tear it down. As Marvel was starting, it became the biggest thing. And then once it became the biggest thing and everybody was seeing it, the people that started off like, oh my God, I've wanted to see these things in my whole life. Now they want to tear it down. It's like, oh, Marvel's made, there are constantly articles. When it started, it was constantly articles about, oh, Marvel's going to be the next big thing. Marvel's changing the way the industry works. Marvel's do that. And they did all that. But now it's like, oh, Marvel's out of good ideas and this is why Marvel's dying. And it's like, I don't think Marvel's dying. Their movies are still doing well. And it's like, well, okay, they didn't do as well as the last batch. Well, they didn't do as well because they lost a big chunk of their market with pandemic closures and China not opening the movies. But domestically, they still do pretty well. And I don't know. I don't get the negativity towards the Marvel movies. I get it towards some of the DC movies and there are some bad movies out there. And there are some problems, but there's some really good stuff here too. So WandaVision was one of those that got a lot of mixed reviews because I think the people that went in expecting it to be a standard MCU thing, which everybody seems to love and hate. Everybody thinks that Marvel should do things different. They should change it up, that everything's the same. And then when they do something different, everyone comes out and says, no, what are you doing? This is horrible. Yeah. JD says, in general, I don't hate on MCU. This phase is just lackluster with its movies. And again, I disagree. I look at Shang-Chi as one of the better Marvel movies. Spider-Man No Way Home. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, I'm not a big fan of Thor Love and Thunder. And I liked Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but I didn't think it was as good as it could have been. But to me, Black Panther was amazing. And again, Shang-Chi to me is one of the best Marvel origin stories. And Spider-Man No Way Home was just a lot of fun. So, like I said, I don't get the whole lackluster, but that's why they're called opinions, right? All right. So, but WandaVision was being hated on because it had that black and white first couple episodes, and it was really something different. I mean, really different. And I think the people that stuck around with it were rewarded because it became something very special. It became this essay on grief. It showed just the fallout it started to show the fallout from the Infinity Saga. The effect it had on the heroes and the loss. And we get that with this. We get that in Falcon the Winter Soldier. We get a bit of it in Loki and in Black Widow. And we really see what this stuff does, the damage it does to these people. And I thought that was an interesting theme to carry through, is about dealing with grief and loss. And that's one of the things Phase 4 did, is it brought in a lot of darker tones, but not in violent levels, more in The themes were, I'm missing my word. Wow, I cannot think of my word right now. Consequences. The theme was consequences. So JD says Black Widow, Eternal, Shang-Chi were all forgettable, in my opinion, and Thor was just insulting. Yeah. Again, yeah. We will get to each of those. Lackluster is probably the word, Dan. Yeah, again, like I said, I don't think it was lackluster, but again, um, so WandaVision was special in a lot of ways because it really developed the characters, and that was something that Marvel could do with these new TV shows, these short form series, that they could really spend time. I mean, there was the line that Vision says about what is grief but love endearing or persevering. And to me, that's just a brilliant line. I mean, just really summed up the series. But it was also a very different kind of series, and I could see it not appealing to the general. And that's another thing that I see is that some of these shows weren't made for everybody, and that's something that Marvel is, being able to do. They don't feel that they have to do the general audience thing on some of their movies and TV shows and stuff. And I think that's great. Jay says, we really enjoyed it. In fact, we only watched WandaVision and Loki all the way through. Interesting. Triple B says, I love WandaVision because we got the Scarlet Witch. Yeah. And JD says, I'm half joking only because I love Marvel. Okay. Yeah, WandaVision was the birth of the Scarlet Witch, which is interesting because they don't really love using code names and stuff like that. So they find ways to make it that if they get a code name or something, there's a reason for it. And I like that. I love diving more into the supernatural side of it, setting up Doctor Strange. So overall, I thought WandaVision was a really good entry. Now, then we shifted into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, to me, this was more of a standard Marvel show that got its humor, its action, the stuff that you expect. The problem here was the pandemic. The pandemic not only screwed up the filming and stuff of it, but it forced them to change plot lines. And I think any negativity towards this series is because they were scrambling trying to fix what was screwed up by the pandemic. Hey, Thomas. JD says, Loki, as much as I enjoyed it, is something I can't say was good. One of the most contrived stories I've ever seen. My significant other was completely lost. He says, Falcon and Winter Soldier was excellent in my opinion. I really liked Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it did suffer because of plot changing in response to the pandemic, because the plot involved a big global pandemic thing, and that would have been really inappropriate at the time. So Marvel scrambled. I think it was well acted. I think there was some really good lines, really, the story of bringing in John Walker, watching what the super soldier serum does to somebody, who isn't as pure as Steve Rogers. I mean, there's a lot good there. Plus, we got a boat fixing montage. I mean, that was awesome. It was almost a Mentos commercial type level of awesome. So, but again, they had to deal with the loss of Steve, people coming back from the snap, and just all the stuff. Just they pulled a lot of the humanity to it, and I think that's in a lot of ways what these shows also did was they grounded them in reality and humanity. And the fact that Bucky was going to a therapist, even though it was court appointed, um, that he was dealing with the guilt that he felt from all the years as a Winter Soldier. Now, a lot of characters would just go, "Oh, I was mind controlled. That wasn't me." But he feels all that stuff, and that's how he was in the comics, and they brought that into the shows. And that was something they could explore in a six episode mini series that they wouldn't have been able to do in a movie. You know, plus we got Baron Zemo dancing. I mean, come on. Jay says, just to be clear, it is time thing is why we haven't gotten to the others yet. Okay. The experience is a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Dan, sorry I'm late. No problem, Ed. Glad you're here. We're talking about Marvel Phase 4. We're just going down, trying to figure out the themes of it and recapping it as Phase 5 is about to kick off. Before we move on to the next series, let's go ahead and we'll take our first break and we'll come back and start talking about Loki. Be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We got a good lineup today. Right after this, I will be here with Jay and Kyle, maybe Sean, and we'll be talking about books coming out this week. Then the Space Cadets crew will come on and do their take on some new books with Minute to Skim It. Then we have Mint Hunter and Country Road Comics. So we got a full lineup today. You want to stick around. We're talking about Marvel Phase 4. Now, something that came in with these, and it started with WandaVision, and it was around for Falcon and Winter Soldier 2, but it just kind of kept building and building. And that was over speculation. And people getting, I don't want to say their hopes up, but, you know, the idea, oh, Mephisto's going to show up in WandaVision, or oh, the power broker is going to be Arnim Zemo, Arnim Zola, excuse me. The idea that, we would speculate, we would look at the comics and come up with theories, and which is fun. I have no problem with that at all. But then people would be disappointed when it didn't live up to those theories and take it out on the show for going a different direction. And that's something I think we're finally starting to get away from. But it was big through the first part of Phase 4. It got to the point where people were expecting these bigger and bigger and bigger ideas and concepts, and Marvel wasn't doing those. They were doing the story that they were trying to tell. So Thomas says Falcon and Winter Soldier was awesome. Yeah, I love the dynamic between Bucky and Sam. I think that's great. The third thing in the Phase 4, of course, was Loki, which I think surprised a lot of people. I don't think they really knew what to expect going in, and they got this weird kind of Doctor Who / Rick and Morty-esque time travel thing. And it also kind of set up, in retrospect, it turned out to be the setup for what's happening now with the Phase 4, 5, and 6. So, that Loki was important for that. It introduced some big concepts of the multiverse. It introduced the time traveling aspect, the time variance authority, and it sets up Kang with Jonathan Major's appearance as He Who Remains. Thomas says we need more Sharon Carter, and that Hawkeye worked really well too. I agree with you. So Loki was big on that, and I think a lot of what we're going to get going forward is set up by Loki. So where I really enjoyed the first two series, I think Loki is probably the more important, at least as of right now. I mean, yes, Falcon and Winter Soldier gave us the new Captain America. Also gave us U.S. Agent, gave Bucky kind of a clean, a clearer conscience, and it sets up the power broker idea. But now we don't know when they're going to get to that. Will that be New World Order? Will that pop up somewhere else? But it's pretty interesting. Plus, we meet Val, and Val's going to be important too, it seems. But yeah, the Loki series, I think, is the biggest one for the overall multiverse saga. And we'll have to see how all that plays out. Plus, we got some really neat moments like the multiple Lokis. Seeing Richard E. Grant pop up as comic accurate Loki, that was really cool. Stuff like that. From there, we get to the first movie. And I think Black Widow had a couple big flaws that kind of takes everybody out of the movie. But I think there was a lot of good in the movie too. It's like I'm not a fan of the twist on Taskmaster. It feels like a waste of a very good character. But since they plan on doing more with the character, and you can't count Kevin Feige out when he does that, because I've said this before, but if you've noticed, when fans don't like something, Kevin Feige hears them, but he doesn't do what they expect. The fans didn't like the whole Trevor Slattery / Mandarin thing in Iron Man 3. So instead of saying, oh, well, we're going to get rid of that, he went, oh, you didn't like Trevor Slattery? Well, we're going to give you to him again in Shang-Chi. And by the end of it, everybody's going, oh, Trevor was great. Yeah, Trevor's awesome. Yeah. And now they're putting him in Wonder Man and people are cheering. They're like, oh, that's gay. Trevor's coming back. It's like, y'all hated Trevor. Yeah. Oh, and the one shot, Hail to the King. That was it. So Kevin Feige goes, oh, you didn't like that? Well, let me give you some more. Let me give you some more. And I'm going to keep giving it to you till you like it. And I think, he's doing that with Dark World too. Thor the Dark World. It's like, no, we didn't like Thor the Dark World. Really? Because let me show you how important it is in Endgame. And all of a sudden people are like, Dark World's not nearly as bad as I thought it was. Yeah, I mean, there was some, and people start watching Dark World. And even Eternals, people are all like, oh, the Eternals is horrible. Well, Eternals is like the most watched thing on Disney or Disney Plus. You get the thing that Kevin Feige doesn't make mistakes. And if you think Kevin Feige made a mistake, he's going to show you why he didn't make a mistake. And he's pretty good about that too. I mean, I got to admit, he pulls that off. But so Black Widow had its flaws, but I think some great stuff came out of it. Yelena Belova came out of it. Red Guardian. I mean, come on. Red Guardian. David Harbour as Red Guardian was a treat. Hey, Kenneth. Hey, Nick. Loved David Harbour in that role. The way he flirted with his supposed wife. There was just a lot of really good stuff in the movie. But you have to get past the fact that it had kind of a weak-ass villain in Dreykov. And the Taskmaster twist, I don't think went over very well. It's not gaslighting because gaslighting is telling you you're wrong. It's like, oh, you did this. No, I didn't. You're crazy. Why would you think that? What Kevin Feige does is he just keeps giving it to you until you like it. It's like, your mom going, well, we're going to have tuna casserole tonight. And you're like, oh, God, I hate tuna casserole. And she has it another night and another night and another night. And then eventually you're going around going, hey, Mom, can you make tuna casserole? That doesn't sound too much better, Dad. Yes, but are you happy that Trevor Slattery is going to be in Wonder Man? Ed says, uniting the three Spider-Man actors in the last movie was one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in a while. It made a lot of people happy. Mm-hmm. JD says, Harbour's character completely changed in the middle of the movie and not because he served time in prison. Don't know if I understand that one. All right. Yes, dang it with your logic, Dan. Yes. So, Jay, tonight you can have tuna casserole. So I think now Black Widow was interesting for me because it's the first movie not to come out in theater or not, I didn't see in theaters. I had just come home from vacation. I had just driven in, was relaxing after the long car ride and went, oh, hey, look, Black Widow's on. Just dropped today. Let's watch that. So I think it had some issues. And I think a lot of the stuff was affected by the pandemic. And I think Black Widow was one of them. But I think it was better than people think it was. Black Widow is like Moonraker in a lot of ways. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that comparison. Some other people have made that comparison as well. And I think they even wanted that with the whole falling from the sky thing. Yeah, I think they could have done without that, actually. It looked cool, but it didn't make a lot of sense. So, but I think there's some good to pull out of that movie as well. JD says, watch the movie, and the character he plays in the beginning of the movie is completely different from when we meet up with him in prison. Very odd. Even the person I saw it with noticed that. Well, I think he's disillusioned when we see him again. It's not that he spent time in prison, it's that he was in a way dedicated to Russia as Steve Rogers is to America and the ideals of America, and then he got betrayed. So I think a lot of that was the disillusionment in him. When your life is surrounded by, or your life is driven by your belief in something, and then that gets taken away from you or betrayed, you become something else. Now, what that varies, and it just turned out more of an egotistical. He's not very bright. So Ed says, I was disappointed with Black Widow. The character deserved a better movie. Way too much talking with her and her family. She did deserve a better movie. She deserved a movie much earlier in the process. I think had this movie happened at a more natural point instead of it being a flashback, I think even as is, it would have been better. So, all right. After Black Widow, we got the What If series. Now, the What If series to me is kind of an anomaly. I don't think you have to watch it. You could totally skip it. But it does help set up the multiverse, and there's a lot of winks and nods to it from the Doctor Strange movie. So you don't necessarily need to watch the animated series, but there's also some really good episodes and a couple. And if you'd like zombies, there's the whole zombie thing. But there was a couple really good episodes of What If, like the one with the Avengers being killed off. So, take care, JD. I like that one a lot because of who the bad guy turns out to be. And there's some good twists and turns. Plus, it tied the original Hulk movie back into the MCU. And yes, it's always been part of the MCU, but it had never really been acknowledged or referenced. The closest thing we got to a reference to the original Hulk movie was in the Avengers movie when Banner says, I put a gun in my mouth and the big guy spit out the bullet, or whatever the phrasing was. That's a scene from, one of the deleted scenes from The Incredible Hulk. So, but I think it connects it well, which it becomes, they've been doing it also with bringing in Thunderbolt Ross, even though he's passed, bringing back the Abomination, and now they're going to bring back the Leader. So again, as Kevin Feige going, you didn't like that Hulk movie? Are you sure? Because we're going to bring this character back. We're going to bring that character back. You still didn't like that movie. Have you watched it again? Because you probably want to watch it again. As I love the What Ifs. They were a lot of fun. Also, some of my favorite comics are What Ifs. Yeah. What Ifs to me are always like the Elseworlds, DC's Elseworlds in a way. Let's take the same characters and do them slightly different. Thomas says Black Widow needed to be out shortly after the first Iron Man film if it was going to work in an early vein. Otherwise, it had to connect to Infinity War and while fitting it into what happened with the blip in Endgame. All right. So after What If, we got Shang-Chi. And to me, as I said earlier, Shang-Chi is probably my favorite movie of Phase 4. Looking back at all of them, yeah. I think Shang-Chi was my favorite movie of Phase 4. It was the most complete. We got a brand new character, a brand new world. We got references to the Marvel Universe without being beaten over the top by it. We got a post-credit scene that ties into the MCU. We got good action, good characters. We kind of clean up the whole Mandarin thing from Iron Man 3 with Trevor Slattery. We find out the Mandarin is just a nickname or it's not even a name he uses. We get such a great villain in Wen Wu. We get giant dragons fighting. I mean, I loved Shang-Chi. I really did. And if you were going to say, okay, let's sit down and watch one movie from Phase 4, which one do you want to watch? I'm going to pick Shang-Chi. I thought Simu Liu was just a breath of fresh air. As much as I shake my head at her name, Aquafina. I know it's her stage name, but Aquafina was great. The jokes about Razor Fist. Yeah, I think it just really is one of the better movies. And in a way, though, it's interesting because it's outside of all the grief issues that I'm dealing with, which is funny because there's these themes that seem to be popping up, dealing with loss and grief. Loki's dealing with loss, and Wanda, and this is the kind of the breath of fresh air. And it's like the Ant-Man movie in a sense, in that, it's that breather. So Ed says, No Way Home was my favorite Phase 4 movie by a long shot, and the rest were all about the same for me. Okay, Ed. Yeah. I liked this better than No Way Home because I felt No Way Home was a little too much fan service. For my taste. Not saying it was bad. I felt a little too much fan service. But Doctor Strange for me, but honestly, I don't think I'd ever watch any of them again, says Werpenstein. And hello, Werpenstein. I always watch them at least twice. Sometimes, probably a third time, because I always watch them when I get the Blu-ray or the 4K HD disc, and I watch the director's commentary version. So if there's a director's commentary version, it's 3 times. So after Shang-Chi, we got the Eternals, and I know a lot of people weren't fans of the Eternals. I liked the movie. It was a little long, and I felt like they kind of made the I can't think of the name of the evil creatures. They made the deviants useless, or like, why are they in the movie? When your bad guy turns out to be one of your own stuff. But overall, I liked the Eternals. I thought it was a beautiful movie. I thought it was very different than most of Marvel films. But it was slow. It definitely could have been a little shorter and a little faster. But Ed says, I agree with you on that, but I liked that about it. Okay. Doctor Strange and Thor were definitely the weakest links in this phase. Interesting. Thank you, Werbenstein. Yeah, Deviants. I couldn't remember that for a minute. But I think Eternals will get a sequel. And I think people will look back at that one more fondly than when it first came out. And I think there's going to be a lot of movies like that in this phase. Jay says, it almost felt like it should have been a series, but at the last minute they cut it into a movie. It's possible, yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think the Deviants were underplayed. They needed to either be an actual threat and be part of the finale, or just get rid of them. I mean, one way or the other. But after the Eternals, one of my favorite TV series was Hawkeye. But then I'm a Hawkeye fan. I loved having Jeremy Renner back. I loved the whole musical number, the jokes, the humor. I thought Echo was a pretty decent character. I loved having Kingpin back. To me, it clicked on a lot of cylinders. The character of the swordsman, Jack, I thought he was great. I kept expecting him to have a turn or a twist because his character's a bad guy in the comics, but he never does. And then just to see him in that final fight scene where he's running around just fighting off the bad guys, I thought he was great. I'd love to see more of him. Maybe he can show up in Wonder Man as well. That would be awesome. So Hawkeye was a lot of fun. I thought it was a great introduction of Kate Bishop. That was a good introduction of Echo, and eventually we'll get the Echo series. But overall, I thought it was a nice series. It was a good holiday series too. I think that's what was important about it, is it gives Marvel kind of a Christmas thing. Now they've also got Guardians Holiday Special, but I really like the Hawkeye series. By the way, guys, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons if you would. I'd appreciate it. And remember the subscription thing. We're going to be giving away those CGC graded books. Every show is going to have one. So I'll have one to give away. We'll have one on, I think, in stores this week. The other shows will have one to give away. So you'll definitely want to be a subscriber. So after Hawkeye came Spider-Man No Way Home. We talked a little bit about that. It was a lot of fan service. And I think people liked that a lot. But there's a certain confusion level that comes out of it that I wish they would have clarified a little bit. I in a way, it felt Marvel's getting a lot of Rick and Morty writers to come in and work on the scripts and stuff. And Rick and Morty writers have this tendency to every once in a while just kind of brush over the logic. It's just like, no, you don't need to act. And I think Marvel isn't that way. Marvel fans want to understand. They want to know. They don't want to just brush over certain things. So, how did the spell work? How do people remember him? Do they not remember him? What is his life now? I mean, there's a lot of questions left, and we don't really have the answers. And since there isn't another Spider-Man movie in the works yet, really not sure. And then the whole Venom thing, what the hell was that? He comes through, but he doesn't come through. Yeah, I that was weird too. So, but it was a fun movie. I thought bringing in the but see, that's the other thing, bringing in the previous stuff. When you do something like that, it's fun, but it complicates things too. So we'll have to see how all that falls out. After Spider-Man was Moon Knight. And to me, Moon Knight, Hawkeye is like right here. Moon Knight's just like right there. I loved Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight. His portrayal of Mark versus Steven, and how you physically kind of feel the shift between the characters. F. Murray Abrams' voice as Khonshu, and Ethan Hawke did a great job as Arthur Harrow. And even though Harrow isn't really the character he is in the comics, I think he makes a good villain. There's all of the shows, they have a little bit of a logic jump sometimes, and it's like, well, wait, no, I don't understand. But overall, I think Moon Knight did really well. I love that they created this character of the Scarlet Scarab, I think it is, who, basically we get a new hero with the girlfriend, or with it's not Marlene in it, but Moon Knight had a lot of great stuff to it. And it's probably the one series that I'm most eager to see continued on. It's like, I'd like to see Echo. I'd like to see more Hawkeye, more Falcon, all those stuff. But Moon Knight's the one is like, do I get a vote? Then I'll put on Moon Knight. Then after that was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I'm a little mixed on. I enjoyed the movie, but I wish it was more of a Doctor Strange movie. We lose the character growth when you do a bigger movie like this. When you do something like the fact that it's all about Wanda and her search for her kids and stuff like that, that you really don't see a lot of growth in Steven. You get some, with his interactions with America Chavez, stuff like that. But sometimes I wish these movies were a little more insular. Let the crossover movies be Avengers and stuff like that, and let the solo movies be more solo movie. Take up so much time. I almost feel like I should do 2 days on this. After Doctor Strange was Miss Marvel, which was one of my least anticipated movies, but one I enjoyed the most. I mean, and the things I liked about it weren't the things I expected to. I really enjoyed the family dynamic, the family aspect, the looking into the past, those things, the cultural stuff, none of which I expected to like going in or even was expecting, and came out really enjoying. And without having seen it yet, I'm thinking that Shang-Chi and his rings and Miss Marvel and her bauble are going to tie into what's going on in the future. I think both of those are going to be important. Now, we know Miss Marvel is going to show up in the Marvels, so that might be where we get the answer. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're not tied into Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, because at least the technology looks the same on that stuff. It says Doctor Strange showed more character growth in No Way Home than he did in his own sequel. Yeah. Yep, I agree with you on that. I do love the fact that Wong is showing up everywhere now. I think Wong has become the new Coulson. After Miss Marvel was Thor: Love and Thunder, and this was the low point for me of Phase 4. I am not necessarily a fan of Thor: Love and Thunder. I think what Taika Waititi did well with Ragnarok, it didn't work as well here. I think they took a very serious subject like cancer and a very comedic tone, and they don't work that well together. I don't think they gave enough time for Gore the God Butcher. Again, it feels like there was too much pushed into this movie. Thomas says, we don't get to the multiverse without Doctor Strange, and What If really played up. Yes, that is true. So yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder, I felt, was trying to do too much, and in doing so didn't really pay enough time to like the character of Gore the God Butcher, or you throw in all the other gods, you throw in Zeus, and it's like, give us more time with these things, or stop. And Thor also seems short. Like there could have been more. They could have done more with it. So they consider this part of Phase 4, but the I Am Groot special little minis, they're fun. They don't really add much, but they're fun. She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I found it fun to watch, but it doesn't feel like it fits in very well because of the fourth wall breaking, but also the ending. And as much as I think the ending is perfect for a She-Hulk series that is going like the John Byrne series, the breaking the fourth wall, the just changing everything, walking into the real world, all of that stuff is pure She-Hulk. But it's tough to do because then you start asking questions on how does it affect the rest of the MCU, and it gets all complicated. So as much as I like the She-Hulk series, I kind of feel that it works against what Phase 4 is trying to do. But it was nice to see more of the Hulk. And they just introduced this Hulk's son, which seemed kind of weird. It's like, and that's the other thing is that we're getting through this phase is not only introducing some characters, but introducing a lot of junior characters or young Avenger type characters. So now after She-Hulk came another great thing, the Werewolf by Night special, which we got Werewolf by Night, we got Man-Thing, and Bloodstone. I mean, that was fantastic. Ed says, have you heard, is a She-Hulk done or is there a second season? They have not said either way. So it's not like no, there's not going to be. There's a possibility, but they're not saying either way. They're actually being pretty tight-lipped on the TV shows after the ones they've got lined up because they have so much lined up with Secret Invasion. And they've already moved Armor Wars from a series to a movie, but they've got Echo, they've got the big Daredevil series coming, they got Wonder Man, and Agatha Coven of Chaos. So they've got so much lined up. I think they're going to keep quiet on that. But I know She-Hulk deserves a second season. Moon Knight deserves a second season. Warpentine says She-Hulk was a high profile under Byrne and FF, her own series then Avengers, so it worked back then. She's pretty much a no-name now, so everything she did fell flat. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think the show worked pretty well, but I don't think it was what people expected. So, all right, the last two things for Phase 4, of course, were the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which I think was just fun. The only important thing that comes out of it is Mantis being the son of or the daughter of Ego and Quill's half-sister, which could end up playing into if Marvel ever wants to do the Celestial Madonna story. And then finally, of course, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, again, dealing with grief and the fallout of all the stories ahead of it, but also dealing with the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I think that the movie had too many masters to serve. They could have trimmed some of it down, but overall, I thought it was a very good movie. So, Thomas says, I still haven't watched She-Hulk, and the first episode that I watched of Ms. Marvel, no joke, feels like the Avengers video game that came out right after COVID let up. The Ms. Marvel series, the first episode was meh, but it started getting better, and by the end of it, it was really good. She-Hulk was consistent. You know, there was a couple better episodes than others. When Daredevil shows up, it's well worth it. When they're dealing with the person making the costumes, overall, it's a fun series, but not necessarily important. If you're going to sit down and watch one of the two, I'd say Ms. Marvel, because I think that's going to tie into them. Oh, okay, got to wrap it up. Thanks for coming by. Please hit that like and subscribe and stick around for In Stores this week, starting next. I'll be right back with that.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.